Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure of having Steve Fretzin, who is kind of what they call a business development therapist for lawyers. He coaches and trains lawyers in the most modern day business development skills, providing precise tips, fresh ideas, and actionable tasks that drive tangible results. And he's also the host of Be That Lawyer podcast, which I was on several weeks ago. And he's been featured in the Chicago Tribune, Cranes, Entrepreneur.com, and has been appeared on NBC and WGN Radio. He's written 3 books, and I see one of them there today if you're watching this. And he's published articles in Attorney at Law magazine, the National Law Review, the American Bar Association, and the Illinois State Bar. So he comes with a full pedigree. Thank you for being on the show today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to a lively conversation.
All right. So just, I give kind of I got it off your website. I mean, I was very, very capsulized. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and your company.
Sure. So Fretzin Inc. has been around since 2004, and I'm not an attorney, and I never thought for a moment getting into my own business in 2004 as a quote unquote sales coach that I would ever work with lawyers or in the legal space. So I didn't. I spent all my time with entrepreneurs, helping them grow business, build sales teams. And in 2008, something happened. I think it was this recession. And I started getting calls from my friends who wanted to introduce me to lawyers they knew that were maybe not hitting the mark and lost their jobs or got their comp slashed or whatnot. And so I started working with lawyers in around 2008. And 1 led to 2 and 2 to 3, and then a law firm and then 2, and it just bubbled up. And within a few years, about 80% of my total business was working with lawyers and law firms. And here I am telling all the lawyers, how to specialize and niche down and all that. And I hadn't pulled the trigger yet. So I did. And it's been an absolute pleasure the last number of years helping attorneys grow their books of business and develop sustainable methodologies of growing business every year with less effort and energy than they ever thought they would, they'd be able to learn these skills because they are learned skills. So that's how I spend my day, Ken. It's been an absolute beautiful situation.
Right. And, there is a lot of challenges. I mean, what challenges do you see lawyers have in growing their books of business? What do you typical?
Yeah, I mean, starting with what I call head trash, which is, sales is not for me, business development, whatever phraseology you want to use, fear of taking risks or fear of rejection, all the head trash, et cetera. Then there's a lack of planning. There's a lack of execution. How do you get a client to refer you without being pushy? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So when I talk with lawyers, the first thing I do is a bloodletting exercise where I get them to basically tell me all of their woes, all of their challenges, everything and I have half a sheet of paper filled usually by the time we get to, all right, so here's where we go from here. And so these are things not taught in law school. They're things not taught at the law firm level in most cases. And so lawyers are kind of out there just figuring it out on their own. And for many, that's the way to go. And for some, they're going to want to shortcut the time that it takes to get $1 million book or a $500,000 book, or just take things to the next level. And that's usually when they're calling me up.
And when you say book of business, can you explain to our listeners what you mean by that?
Sure. So, lawyers bill hours. That's how they're making money and building revenue for their firm. And when a lawyer brings in his or her own clients, they're under that lawyer's name. And so they develop those, what are called originations, into a book of business, or you're essentially your list of clients. That would be the alternative definition. And when you have your own clients, something changes. You have control. You're able to do the work you want to do. You're able to pass some work down, and you're able to kind of control the destiny of, if you want to keep building, great. If you want to take your quote unquote book of business or client list and go somewhere else or go on your own, you can, but you have control. And without that, you can still have a great career in law, but you're doing everyone else's work. You're essentially a worker bee to handle the work. And again, for some people, they go through their whole careers and that's no issue. And for others, they realize, geez, if the firm's clients dry up, or if I'm dealing with everyone else's problems and clients and not my own, it's a different direction that some people want to take their careers by having their own book of business or client base.
Yeah, and plus, if you get ready to leave, it's easier. You got more confidence when you walk out the door.
Yeah,
and I would think also other side, if somebody's got to start cutting lawyers, they're not going to cut the ones that have the book of business.
that is correct. That is correct. In fact, it used to be if you were a lawyer and you wanted to leave a firm, or you're general counsel and you wanted to go into private practice, and you talk to a recruiter, the recruiter would want to know about your pedigree. They'd want to know about your law school, and they'd want to know about your, where you worked and all those things. And they still do want to know those. But the number one question, and the one that's going to be asked maybe before all others, is what's your book of business? And so now that we've defined that, and lawyers generally know what that means, that it's, do you have your own clients to bring with you? Because then you have a lot more value. And that's what law firms are looking for, is they're looking for lawyers that can add value beyond their education and their expertise in the field.
So what do you help these lawyers with specifically?
Well, the simplest way to do it, or to talk about it, is thinking about it like like if you wanted to be an expert chef or musician or athlete. There's certain things that it takes to become the best or very, very good at those particular professions. And in developing businesses is not that different. I think it starts with a plan, and having a structured plan of who you're targeting, how are you spending your business development hours or time in an efficient way. Number two is having a set series of processes to follow. So in addition to just winging it or figuring it out on your own, wouldn't it be better if you said, I know what to do and what to say, and if I follow these steps, I'm going to get a predictable outcome. So just like with a chef following a recipe or following a certain order, you're going to get a more predictable outcome with the dish that's going to be delivered to the restaurant. And so we want to put those processes in place. And then the last thing that I help lawyers on or with is what I call performance improvement. So it's one thing to learn a process. It's another to make it the best it could be, to make it, kind of airtight. And so for example, today I get a call from a client, says, I really want to make sure that I go into this meeting with the right questions and the right approach. And I think I know what I'm doing, but can I run a couple ideas by you? And I'll say, sure. And we talk, and sure enough, there's a couple questions that lawyer may have missed. And so, I suggest the questions. Then the lawyer may call me up after the meeting and say, hey, this is how it went. And then maybe we debrief it together and find that it went well, or we find that there were some gaps there. So these are all things that will help someone get better and better and better. So you're not staying the same. It's like, imagine if you have the easiest way to explain this, Ken, imagine that you have your first trial and it doesn't go so great. What if 10 years later, in 10 years of trials, many each year, you never got better? You stayed the same as your first trial. You probably wouldn't be a very good lawyer. You probably be out of there pretty quick. So with business development, the whole kind of end game is, how do we get better and better and better? So then it becomes easy. It just becomes a part of the way you do things, like a 10-year veteran trial attorney who's improved, where they go in with such confidence into the courtroom because they're not going to get shaken by anything that's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess what you really you're systematizing this for them, but then you're coaching them to refine it. You help them create the system, the processes, but then you like coach them to excellence, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah.
Year at a time.
Yeah, that's really what I'm doing. And the goal is to, again, for an attorney that works with me, to internalize how to do it at such a degree that they don't ever need me again. And it's a bad business model, by the way. But it's great from a standpoint of how I feel, which is I'm turning out these assassins that for the rest of their careers don't really have to worry about business. And it's not that they don't have to work hard or that they don't have to execute. They do every year. However, to do it with plans and processes and having made these improvements, it just becomes very very easy compared to someone who's out just using sheer force and effort and time to try to get the same kind of results.
Yeah, reminds me of that. Lawyers, for the most part, marketing in general, a lot of lawyers just don't like it because we're a profession and whatever, but it's a business too. And the deal is, I mean, you can be the best lawyer in the world, but if nobody know about you, they're not gonna hire you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like they say you can build the best mousetrap in the world, but if you don't advertise or you don't get the word out, then nobody's gonna buy your mousetrap, even if it's the best one in the world. So I agree. I think you serve a useful purpose for lawyers that are, and I guess most of these are going after corporate clients, I would think.
Well, that's not necessarily true. So here's the interesting thing. The processes that I teach are specifically sales free. So meaning I'm not teaching sales. I'm not teaching pitching. I'm not teaching how to go out and convince people of anything. I'm talking about building relationships, asking great questions, listening, empathy, being a very consultative, and essentially walking buyers through a buying decision. And when you do so, it changes the whole formula. And here's the interesting thing. I work in every practice area. Unless someone is doing so well with their marketing, their advertising, their billboards, their TV ads, they may not want to put their own personal efforts out there. But for anyone that's in personal injury all the way to big corporate lawyers that want to put their energy into building relationships and to going out and getting business, those are the lawyers I work with. The only caveat is they all have to be highly motivated, because like a coach and a player, I'm only as good as my player can. So I'm really out searching for the right clients as much as they might be searching for me. And I'm always looking for a good fit. And if it isn't there, I'd rather them save their time and money and either hire someone else or do something else, because I just don't see how we're going to get to the finish line, because they have to have the right motivation, the right energy, attitude, et cetera, to get there. And it can be in any practice area. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And so like a PI lawyer could use it to go talk to some doctors to try to get some referrals from doctors and other lawyers.
Yeah.
So
the skills translate across all practice areas, which is interesting, because I didn't know at the beginning of this whole thing, how many practice areas there even were. And now I've worked in the majority of them, short of maybe a couple. I think personal bankruptcy seems to be one that I haven't done anything with. And then a few others, but generally speaking, it's been across the board. And again, they have to be at the right place in their career too, where, like maybe a month out of law school, unless they're starting their own solo, then it's fine. But someone that needs to just learn the law and be a good lawyer first, that might be the play.
Yeah. And this is a question that comes up a lot when I'm talking to lawyers. They almost feel uncomfortable about asking for referrals from other lawyers and doctors. Or they go at it. They just walk in there and say, "Hey, I don't have lunch. Or, yeah, can you send me some cases?" And you correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, not me on this part. But you got to build that. What you were saying, you got to build that relationship and give a lot of value and help them. And then 50% of them will reciprocate. Probably 50% of them won't. I don't know. What have you found?
So obviously there's two different ways to go if you're building relationships. One is to be reactive and just wait for them to recognize that you're doing great work. You're providing a lot of value. You've maybe even given them some referrals or some added, business, et cetera. What I try to teach is the proactive side of things. So it's what's the approach in the language that will make it comfortable for you to ask a client, for example, who thinks you're terrific, right? You've saved the day. You did the home closing perfectly. You got them a big reward on their personal injury case. They think you're terrific. And lawyers are just afraid to make the ask. They're afraid. And part of it is they just don't have the right approach or language. So I'm going to give you an example, Ken, that I think will really be helpful. If you're uncomfortable with making the ask, a thought would be, and again, this is only with people you have really strong relationships with, to admit that you're uncomfortable making an ask. So here's what that would sound like, just to kind of role play through it with you, would be, Ken, I appreciate your commentary on how great this relationship has been with me as your lawyer. And listen, I'm a little uncomfortable even bringing this up to you because I know you're busy, but it would really be so meaningful to me if there were other lawyers that you think I should be talking to that I could help the way I've helped you the last couple of years. And I'm just wondering if that's something you'd be open to discussing. And and scene, right? And so out of role play, the psychology of this is real, and it's not none of this can be made up or fake. It has to be real and authentic. But the reality is that someone will come to your rescue. So the simplest way to explain it is what I call okay, not okay. If you're not okay, someone's going to come to your rescue and make you feel okay, especially someone who's a good person and someone who really likes you and appreciates you. So if I have a headache, this happened today. I said to my wife, I have a headache. She goes, did you take something for it? Do you want me to get you a Tylenol? Like she's, do you think it's allergies? Like she cares, right? Why? Well, because she's my wife and she loves me and all that. But people do that all the time for each other. So this is an approach where if you use it authentically, you will get a positive response. And then of course you have to walk them through who you want to meet, et cetera. But that's just one of many approaches that I teach, because it's going to get you to the finish line to get an introduction that normally you would have been afraid to ask for.
I love it, man. I love it. So do you have an example of how your coaching turned a lawyer's practice around?
Yeah, I mean, I've got one. The individual that I'm thinking of right now, his name's Alex. He's on the cusp of writing, I think, a really strong recommendation on LinkedIn for me because he said he was going to. But here's someone who essentially was doing $30 doc review work to make a living, to make ends meet. And we spoke, and he's an excellent attorney, excellent pedigree. The guy is sweet as punch. And he's great. He's a great attorney. So what is he doing? Well, he just wasn't comfortable with anything business development at all. So he hired me, we worked together, and he just graduated from 6 months of being in my training class, and he is absolutely crushing it. He has developed relationships with strategic partners in the he's a labor and employment plaintiff side lawyer. And he's developed all these relationships where he's now extremely busy with business and new business. And his cash flow was down. We worked out how to get retainers. Now he's getting retainers where he wasn't before. He wasn't asking for retainers. He wasn't getting money up front as a plaintiff side labor and employment attorney. And now he is. And his numbers are way, way up. And now he has now he's talking about finding a partner and starting a firm. I mean, it's just beautiful. And to help somebody like that, who's just a lovely person, I mean, nothing makes me happier on this earth than that.
Well, I tell you, I'm intrigued by what you do, because I think it is definitely a niche. And when we started today, I said, well, this is really going to apply to corporate lawyers. I didn't think it really applied, but now I see you have enlightened me.
Well,
and I appreciate that because that is something that they don't teach you in law school. It's something that it's just innately uncomfortable doing for most lawyers. Not all of them, but most of them. And so I think you provide a great service. So what kind of different programs do you offer for attorneys to the next level?
Sure. So essentially here's a couple things. Talk about niching down. I not only work with really only in the legal space, but I'm now really only working with lawyers. I was working with law firms, and I've decided that I'm not going to do that anymore. Primarily because, like I said earlier, it's coach and player. And sometimes law firms want to give me their problem children, or they want to give me people that are difficult or that they see potential in. And then there's a whole rigmarole to kind of get that worked out. And I just would prefer to take people and put them in my own programs that I run, I control, because then I've got the quality. Then I know what they're getting and I know why it's going to work and how they're going to be successful. So it breaks down to two different programs for people that need coaching and training. And we're talking about people with no books of business. And I have clients that have $6 million, $8 million books. So why would they want to do coaching with me? Or training with me if their book is that big? Well, how did they get that book? Was it inherited? Was it built over 20 years through continual just good work and inheriting more business, or just doing great work? They don't really know how to go out and develop new business, right? They've just been kind of living off of what they've built or their reputation, which is great. I mean, that's wonderful. So coaching and training where they're in a classroom environment with other successful and other ambitious attorneys, learning the skills. And then on top of that, they get me one-on-one for, a period of time, let's say 6-8 months. And then on top of that, I'm on full retainer. So I'm basically available for any of my clients anytime. In fact, one of them I'm taking a walk with this Saturday. We agreed we're going to take an hour walk. We live in the similar neighborhood. So we're going to take a walk and talk the whole time. So, that's one program. So again, someone that needs to learn all these skills and get coached and develop that internalization of how they're going to build business for the rest of their career. That could be a 35-year-old. That could be a 60-year-old. It's up to the individual. Okay. And it's got to be a fit. That's one level of programming that I provide. The other one, and many of my graduates float into this, is peer advisory. So like you've heard of mastermind peer advisor. I think you might do that as well. And in fact, I think you do, right?
Yeah.
Right. So my again, niching down, it's only about growth and business development. So I'm putting lawyers that are very ambitious and interested in growth and sustainability, and putting them in a peer advisory group together to hold each other accountable, to continue to share ideas. One of the people is really good at social media, so he's going to help teach the others. Another one is a prolific writer. He's going to help the others learn how to be a better writer, again, if they want. And so we have a very harmonious type of dream team of lawyers that are all in different practice areas and all working together to try to help each other win the game or win the quarter, win the year. So that's really the two kind of piles or buckets that I put people into, always based on their needs and what they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. So I got a question that I want to ask you.
Sure.
I think it will really be helpful to our listeners, and kind of give them an idea of the kind of things you do. If I was a lawyer and I wanted to go meet, so I want to go have, I get my secretary, or I call up and I get an appointment with a neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon. And my goal is I want to develop a relationship so that down the road, they would send me some cases, because PI lawyers we like cases with surgery, right? Or brain injuries. I mean, we like those kind of cases. They have value. How would you coach a lawyer? I mean, you ain't got to give me the whole 1 hour deal, but what are 3 or 4 things you would tell that lawyer, or things you would tell them that how would they approach that? How would they break the ice?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, one of the first things I do with any client that sort of signs on with me is we develop a highly targeted and simple plan. And part of that plan is breaking down the business development sort of structure into 3 sections: planning, execution, and follow through. And if you think about it, it's like a story, Ken, right? Every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what happens when you miss one of those 3 parts, right? This happens all the time. My wife walks in, she's missed 2/3 of the movie, and she starts asking me, who's that? And why does he hate her? And we go through this whole thing. All right. So with the plan, what we're going to do is we're going to do some planning steps, some execution steps, and some follow-up. And the planning steps are critical, because if you don't have those locked down, then it's like, I think I want to go talk to doctors, so I'm going to go try to do that. So it's going to happen maybe, but it's going to happen haphazardly without a lot of focus. So it might be, listing off, who your targets are. So what kind of doctors, where are they located? How do I get a list of names? How do I get inroads there? So does a doctor want to talk to a personal injury attorney? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they've been inundated with that for years. I don't know. So let's get a list. Let's think about how we're going to get in the door. Maybe we need to come up with some scripting. So we'll work together on some scripts to make that approach comfortable or normal. And then when we're in the meeting, asking questions. I mean, there's nothing better than being a good listener and asking great questions and building that relationship, obviously being paramount. So if I'm meeting with a doctor and I know that doctor is an avid golfer, and I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Googling and all that, and I find out, golf is, I'm not going to be so clearly obvious. You like golf. I'm going to say, I happen to see, that you won a recent tournament. And I was kind of checking you out on Facebook. Tell me about that. And so the doctor's now talking about himself and golf and falling in love with me every minute, because I'm actively listening and taking all this in. And then I can eventually switch to, the business topic. And, it might be about, how many, what types of patients do you see and what kinds of injuries do they have? And what do you currently do when they have an injury that you find is, through negligence of, someone else, oh, well, I just tell them to go find a lawyer. And so then maybe it's coaching them to say, well, do you think you'd be open to throwing my name in the hat? Right. And so they already like you. So maybe they'll do that, try you out. So that's one thought. Another question that I ask is, this is one to write down if you're interested, is in an average, month, how often are you coming across injuries that you think should be passed to a lawyer? And just asking that one question could be mind blowing, because what if that doctor says, I don't know, 4 or 5? And what are they doing with them now? Well, nothing. I just tell them, go find a lawyer. Well, that might be the best. That one doctor could be your whole year, could be your whole, it could be your whole career, depending on the kinds of cases that are being said. So there's certain specific questions that I teach and that I want my clients to ask so that they can walk away with one of two options. Either the option of staying in the middle of it and following through and building that relationship and that referral relationship, obviously finding out what the doctor needs and what you could help the doctor with. Yeah. The other thing is, what about walking away friends, but knowing that there's no business there and I'm just going to move on to someone else? I mean, that could be so empowering to an attorney who feels like they've got to stay in the loop with everybody, when in fact, you just need, 6 to 10 doctors that are really feeding you stuff to make your year potentially. And the quicker you can find out that they're real or not real, or they're good or open to it or not, the better, and the better for you. And so I know we don't like rejection and hearing no, but I teach it as the second best thing you can hear, because maybes, think about it, and I'll get back to you, are the killer of not only our time, but also our emotional energy when people tell you that, because we think we have something there when in reality we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd rather, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'd rather go ahead and have a no and cut the bait and let's go to something else.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, listen, it's been great. Anything else you'd like to, if they want to get in contact with you, our listeners, how's the best way to get up with you, Steve?
I mean, the easiest thing is either going to my website, which is just simply my last name, fretzin.com. I'm on LinkedIn posting, once or twice a day now, really good content, articles I'm writing. My podcast is Be That Lawyer. Check it out. I mean, Ken, you were on there, had a killer interview, and I just keep bringing, great guests like yourself to the table, rainmaking attorneys talking about specialization and experts in technology and marketing, et cetera. So it's just like your podcast, just a really good resource for people to learn business development. And, I'm not a fit for everybody, Ken. So I'm happy to have conversations. I'm happy to evaluate people to identify if there's a fit here. But I'm definitely open to talking to new lawyers that are highly ambitious. That's really my target.
Yeah, I agree with you. I told a lawyer this morning, he was thinking about, going and filming. I said, you're not going to at least put 2 hours a week in it. Don't waste your money and my time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, because I said, you just waste your money if you're not. I said, you got to set aside 2 hours a week to work on your business.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And most lawyers say, well, I just don't have time. We have time to do exactly what we want to do. If it's something you really want to do, you make time to do it. And so when somebody says to me they're too busy, then they just not got the ambition. They want it bad. They don't want it bad enough.
Well, that, and I think they need to fix some organizational issues. They're disorganized, or they haven't figured out how to delegate. I mean, they don't have automation. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why someone is too busy. And, part of our job is to help them figure that out, or to identify their, is it just BS? They're just not ambitious, to your point, in which case, just, keep reading and watching and listening, and, call us when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been great. Man, you've those 2 questions, that was worth the whole podcast. I mean, that was golden nuggets. So hope our listeners caught that. If not, wind it back up and go back, because that stuff, like you said, you do need to write it down. That's golden nuggets.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you out there, listeners. And remember to give us a review, just like you're always asking your clients reviews. We need these reviews so that we can get more listeners and help more lawyers. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.